Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my show. Today, we're going to be discussing a fantastically bizarre case. Honestly, this is kind of like a two and a half for one deal in terms of high strangeness. And it comes from one of my all-time favorite decades of all, the 1970s. This is the bizarre tale of the lumpy flight suit entity. So January 19th of 1972, four teenagers, John and James Yerries, Robbie Cross, and Daryl Rich, decided that they wanted to go night fishing at the Battle Creek Bridge near Anderson, California. Now, the night was dark and kind of rainy or misty, and as they were driving to the location, they saw this brilliant white-blue oval-shaped object cross the road at about power line height up in front of them. They said that it was bright enough that it actually illuminated the interior of the car as well as the surrounding countryside. So as if that's not weird enough, as soon as they parked the car near the bridge and got out, they heard what they described as a blood-curdling scream emanating from the roadside. When they shone the flashlight over in that direction to see who or what made the bizarre scream, they saw something which, honestly, I don't know if you could ever prepare yourself for. It was this bizarre, hunched-over entity. They described it as standing about 7 feet tall. It was a dark brown or green color, and it was completely hairless. As a matter of fact, they said that its skin looked lumpy, almost like the pouches in a flight suit, was how one of the witnesses described it, and that on only one side of its head it had a large teardrop-shaped ear. Now, when this thing saw the boys see it, it turned and ran, and that's also exactly what the witnesses did. They ran back to the car. However, this isn't where the story ends at all. The first two to reach the car were James and Robbie. Now, they jumped in, followed closely behind by John and Daryl. Unfortunately, they turned the key and the car wouldn't start. They actually had to get out and push it into action before they could get the heck out of there. According to the witnesses, they felt as though they were still being watched or chased by some presence as they fled the scene. And that wasn't the only thing that was following them. They claimed that as they drove away from the scene of the event, they saw these soundless firecrackers going off near the ground, as well as all of these balls of light moving erratically in the fields along the roadside. They said that some of them were a white-blue color and some of them were an orange-red color. And again, they were moving very erratically, including, in some cases, actually ascending straight up into the misty sky and vanishing. Perhaps strangest of all, though, one of these orbs of light or balls of light actually formed into a humanoid-shaped object or creature alongside the road. Now, again, even weirder is the fact that as soon as they crossed a particular intersection, all activity ceased. So they made it back finally to Daryl's home and informed his father, Dean Rich, of what had transpired. Perhaps unsurprisingly, he didn't exactly believe them. He said he thought that they were pulling his leg, but he agreed to return to the scene. Only 3 of the 4 initial witnesses agreed to go back with them. One of them refused to return to the area. So the 3 initial witnesses, along with Mr. Rich, pistol in hand, returned to the area where they had first seen the bizarre creature. Now, when the 3 initial witnesses, in the company of Mr. Rich, returned to the location, right away almost, they heard this deep, strange growl emanating from the darkness in front of them. So at this point, all 3 of the initial witnesses who had accompanied him fled, and Mr. Rich followed close behind. Finally, the gang considered that possibly whatever the creature was warning them away from the area. So they returned home yet again and contacted the Anderson Police Department, who in turn contacted the Shasta County Sheriff's Department. I guess a patrol car actually did stake out the bridge that night, but apparently the show was over. Nothing further was reported. So there's a lot from this case that warrants a closer look, but one thing I'll mention right off the bat is that none of the people involved, whether the investigators, APRO did investigate this, the newspaper reporters, or even the parents of the witnesses involved thought that this was a hoax. One officer even said that the fear of the initial witnesses seemed genuine. So again, unless this is some sort of fabrication, what we're left with is an incredibly bizarre case. And first of all, the creature in question. This is another one. I feel like I'm going to say this a million times in my lifetime. This is another one of those really, really bizarre kind of out there entities that for some ungodly reason is put in with hairy hominid reports. I'm not exactly sure why, considering it was distinctly described as hairless and of course covered with lumps like pouches in a flight suit. So again, just really, really odd that this is sometimes lopped in with Bigfoot reports. Not exactly sure why. And also, too, just want to point out that there is the really common feature of the blood-curdling scream associated with this entity. Again, pointed out by John Keel, this is one of the most common sounds regarding any form of paranormal phenomena, whether you're going spectral, UFO related, or cryptids. So that is present in this case as well. Now, of course, we have the fantastic coincidence of the car being unable to start. Of course, I've talked in the past about there being a precedent for sightings of strange creatures to be associated with effects on vehicles. Probably my favorite example is the Marlinton encounter of poor Doc Priestley, in which a Sasquatch-like creature was spotted at the exact same moment his car shorted out, not once, but twice. And then, too, there was also the radio interference of the Wetzel encounter. If you want information on both of those, of course, check out my previous videos. In this case, though, it's kind of interesting to say where the responsibility lies for the effect on the vehicle, because we also have the proximity of unidentified aerial phenomena. And there is, of course, hefty precedent for sightings of UAPs, UFOs, whatever you want to call it, to cause effects on vehicles. In this case, I just think it's really intriguing that, we can't really say where that effect would come from. There was a sighting of a strange creature, there was a sighting of things in the sky. I believe this is really just evidence kind of of blurring of lines between these apparently different fields of research. And of course, too, there's always the odd chance that for whatever reason the car just decided not to start. But of course, I tend to favor the more high strangeness option, given that they were so close to so much weirdness going on. Which, speaking of weirdness, too, we also have the incredibly bizarre concept that the boys said the phenomena ceased as soon as they reached a certain intersection. Crossroads, anybody? So, too, the whole time as well, we have close proximity to a river. Again, there's just this concept that waterways have something to do with the paranormal. For me, though, the pièce de résistance has got to be the strange humanoid-shaped light anomaly that was observed alongside the road. Of course, Paul Devereaux pointed out that many times UFO occupants appear to be comprised of, wearing, or holding somehow something that is of the same material as their craft. We can even see this in the Simonton encounter, in which the cup, which was given to Simonton to fill with water, was made of the same exact material as the craft. So in this case, it's really intriguing that while there was a sighting of an entity that did not match the UAP in the area, we also have this thing which appeared to comprise itself of the same substance, the same light that was making up these light anomalies which were observed. So it's really, really amazing to see kind of how that line between entity and craft became really blurred in this case. Now, truthfully, again, barring any fabrication, which the people involved in investigating this case believed that this was not a hoax, we are truly left with a real three-ring circus of high strangeness. So, if you enjoyed this episode on the bizarre, lumpy flight suit entity and associated anomalies, please like, and if you're new to this field of crop circles, go ahead and subscribe to see what weirdness the future may have in store. Till then, you can keep up with whatever else I might possibly be doing on my website, justanothertinfoilhat.com, and for exclusive content, make sure to check out my Patreon page, also listed under Just Another Tinfoil Hat. For today, I am Celia Edgar, signing off.
Doing.